Hey guys, and welcome back to another Python video. In today's video, we're going to discuss nested if statements through two examples. Now, without further ado, let's get started. Okay guys, in our first example of nested ifs, we're going to allow the user to enter a number and then compare its value using nested conditional statements. So let's say the user enters a number or an integer known as x. And let's give it a prompt saying, please enter a number. Okay, so we have a number called x. Now let's check for if x is greater than 10. Okay, so now in this conditional statement, we want to actually create two more conditional statements, thereby creating nested conditional statements. So we're going to have one if statement and we're going to have an else statement. Okay? So for the first if statement, we're going to check if x is greater than 20. Okay? Now if x is greater than 20, we want to print and also above 20. Okay? Else, we want to print but not above 20. Now another thing I forgot to mention is that once we get this condition to be true, which is if x is greater than 10, we actually want to print an initial statement before going on to these two conditional statements. So our message is going to be above 10, comma, and then we're going to move on to these conditional statements, which will check if x is also greater than 20 or not. Now we can also create an else statement here, which says print x is not greater than 10. Okay? So let's actually try it out, shall we? So let's run our program. So let's enter the number 10. Actually, let's enter it 11. Okay, so it says that our number is greater than 10, but not above 20. Now let's put a number greater than 20, like 25. Okay, so now it says it's above 10 and also above 20. And finally, if we put a number less than 10, we'll just get this message right here. Okay, so this is a basic demonstration of how to use nested conditional statements. In the next example, we're actually going to use nested conditional statements in a more effective and complicated manner. So let's go on to the next one. Okay, so in our last example, we're going to use nested if statements to check the pH value the user enters and then assign it a certain pH rating, such as basic, acidic, or neutral. Okay, so let's get started. So let's say the pH equals 41 for now. Okay, so we're going to create three different conditional statements: an if statement, an else if statement, and an else statement. Okay, so in our first if statement, we're going to check if the pH is greater than 7, which means it's acidic. Okay, now within this if statement, we're actually going to create three more conditional statements. So our first if statement is going to check if the pH is greater than or equal to A and, less than or equal to 10. And if that is the case, then it means that our substance or our solution is mildly acidic. Oh, oh, there we go. Okay, now let's add an else if statement. And our else if statement, just going to copy this right here and paste it over here. Our else if statement is going to check if our pH value is greater than or equal to 11 and less than or equal to 13. And let me just fix that real quick. There we go. And if that is true, then our substance is very acidic. Now, if our pH is over all these values, if it's over 13, then it means that our substance is extremely acidic. Okay, now let's move on to our else if statement. Now in our else if statement, we're going to check if the pH, oh, sorry about that, if the pH is less than 7, which means it's basic. So if our pH is less than or equal to 6 and oh, greater than or equal to 4, then it means that our substance is mildly basic. Else if the pH is less than or equal to 3 and greater than or equal to 2, it means our substance is very basic. Okay, let me just change that. There we go. All right. And then finally, if the pH value of our substance is less than 2, it means that our substance is extremely basic. And I just have to add quotes around this, and we're all good. Okay, now if our pH is not less than 7, and if it's not greater than 7, it means that it is equal to 7, or in that range, which means that our substance then is neutral. Okay, there we go. So now let's run our program. So let's go up here, run our program. Okay, so our pH is 41, which is very unrealistic. So I just wanted to put that in to see if the program works correctly. But let's say our pH is an integer that the user inputs. Okay, so enter pH. Okay, so let's say our pH is 9, for example. So if it's 9, it's mildly acidic. And if it's greater than 10, let's say it is 11, for example, very acidic. And let's say it's greater than 13. So let's say it's, sorry, not greater than 13. Yeah, it is greater than 13, so 14. So it's extremely acidic. Okay. Now let's see if our substance is basic. So if it's less than 7. So if I put in a 5 right now, it will say it's mildly basic. And then if I put in a 2, it would say very basic. And if I put in a 1, it would say extremely basic. Okay? And finally, if I enter 7, it will say my substance is neutral. So this is a more complicated example of using nested if statements since we're using multiple conditions with comparison and logical operators. But the idea is still the same. Once this statement is true, or if this condition is true, it moves on to these conditions here. And whichever one is true, it then executes the instructions corresponding to that conditional statement. And that's the same case for this else if statement and these conditional statements and also this else statement. Now in this else statement, we can also put additional conditions to check for the range in 7. But I'm not going to really do that now because it's the same idea. We're just putting this into here. Okay? Okay guys, that's the end of today's video. I hope you enjoyed it. And if you did, please remember to subscribe and support the channel. I wish you a great day and see you in the next one, guys.